Howdy, y'all. It's Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. Let's talk about Star Trek Generations. Was it any good? Is it actually any good? Let's find out together. Let's walk through it. Many of you that are Trekkies, you've watched this movie, you know it. It is Kirk and Picard get to meet. That's the whole point. That is it. That is the goal of this film. Period. It really is. It's that when you know the behind the scenes, like that's the goal here. All right, so let's go through it. Let's just talk about it really quickly. First off, we have at the beginning of the film, we have Kirk on the Enterprise B with Chekhov and Scotty. What's funny is you can tell these parts were definitely written for Bones and Spock, not Chekhov and Scotty. But my understanding is the actors refused to come back to reprise their roles, so they're like, I'm out, I'm done. And it's still good to see some of the old cast. I will say, I always love Chekhov and Scotty, but there's just some lines that are a little strange here, and like Chekhov doing triage on people is just funny because you're like, okay, he's not trained in that in the same way as other people. Make more sense if it was McCoy. But anyway, great to see them. They're on to, help let the Enterprise B set sail as the new ship that carries the name Enterprise. And then things go haywire very quickly, and also Kirk just wants to be in the captain's chair. And it's funny and interesting, and nothing is installed until Tuesday apparently on this ship. Yep, we gotta backtrack for a second. So this is our intro to how did Kirk apparently die but not actually die. And then we go to TNG, the Next Generation crew on the Enterprise D, but they're on a boat giving a promotion to Worf, and that's why they're in these interesting outfits, because they leave there as they're called up to the bridge to handle a situation. And honestly, I would totally watch a show where they were dressed up like this on the bridge of a starship, because that is awesome. But anyway, it was a neat scene. It's funny, ha ha ha, Data doesn't understand emotions, and that's why he needs to install an emotions chip, because he's doing something that's not funny, even though it was funny. It was very funny that he pushed, was it Beverly? I think she pushed Beverly over, which was hilarious, but everybody's like, Data, that's not funny. And you're like, no, it was. It really was. But there's also the unwritten, well, the situation that's really going on in this film is something that's happened to Picard pretty quickly. He finds out some pretty terrible news, and you can tell Troy knows about it, but isn't going to say anything until later. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But we get into the story, and Soren is somebody that was in the rift when the Enterprise B went to try to save all these people and came out of it and survived, but wants to get back. He is a scientist, and he is trying his very hardest to get back to the rift and do anything he can, to the point of even changing the direction of the ribbon, the rift, to make it line up with a planet, so that way Soren can get back in. And he's not insane, but extremely dedicated to one goal. And the Duras sisters are back in this show, this episode, this movie. It feels just like an extended episode, is why I say that. Which is funny to see them, but also it's stupid in a way, because you're like, oh my gosh, they're here. Why? They haven't been like a major plot point in a bit, whatever, right? Because I don't remember what season they were last seen in TNG. Maybe they were in season 7, I don't know. But they just, after a while, seemed more like nuisances that thought they were smart, but always screwed up and lost, which is what happens here again. So it feels like we're just kind of watching another episode, right? Same thing over again. But these are our big bads, right? And Soren is a fascinating character because he's an Elorian, just like Guinan, and that's interesting at least. But yeah, fascinating little trip down this. And so Picard is trying to stop this whole thing, this ribbon, this rift. This is it, right? This is the big, I remember this commercial, like seeing it when I was younger on like VHS tapes or whatever. And I was like, huh, weird, interesting. Very fascinating concept for a movie. Like, that's what's funny about this film. When we actually talk about the film, what do we actually really say about this? Is it good or not? What's funny is if you were to read a lot of this on paper, it's not bad. Like, the concept here is really interesting, that we see the death of Kirk, but yet it's not actually his death, and he's stuck in the ribbon, and then Picard needs his help. Also, side note though, this is going to be a topic of confusion in the actual movie, because like, I think again, like, the script on paper isn't bad. The movie itself, it's pretty rough, because apparently this ribbon, you can go anywhere, anytime you want, and it will spit you out and put you there. So not only is this ribbon a dream maker, that it just creates all your dreams will come true, period. It's also going to do something profoundly crazy, teleport you to anywhere and everywhere. I would basically say, how do you know it's actually not even that you're actually in the real world? That's always the question with stuff like this. How do you really know? I don't know that you really would. They try to make it out like that, because Kirk's like, I've jumped that many, many times and always been afraid, and this was the first time I never was, when he was on horseback over a jump. And I was just like, that's the closest you're going to get to an explanation of saying this place is perfect, too perfect. And that's it. There's no sense of adventure, because it's perfection. And also apparently for Kirk, it's been all of 5 seconds that he feels like he's been in there, even though it's been years and years on the outside, right? Decades and decades. It's just like, okay, you didn't actually have to do that, but it also then implies, why is Picard's moving forward and Kirk's really isn't? Like, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, these are just those strange things. I love that they do stop him. I think why most people hate this film is, well, if they're in love with the Enterprise D, they hate it because it gets destroyed. I get that. I think the Enterprise D is an ugly ship. There, I said it. It is an ugly ship, because it is. It is an ugly ship. If you actually look at that ship, it's just big and chunky, and it's not eloquent. Man, I can't even say it right now. It's just not an eloquent starship. It doesn't have a sleekness to it, like the Ambassador. Like, there's very few ships that I find that really have a great profile that doesn't just feel chunky when their saucer is wider than it is long, in relation to like the nacelles and stuff. The Akira is an exception to that. The Cheyenne class, I think it's a 4-nacelled thing from the Battle of Wolf 359. Looks pretty solid, but it's because the things behind it help balance it out, and the Akira works with how it's built too. Like, it functions right. It looks good with a wider saucer than long. It works, but not for the Galaxy class. It's chunky, and I would even dare say I think the Nebulas look better. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off topic, but just something that drives me crazy. This rift is really interesting too, because in the past we see that Chekhov actually ran into Guinan from this rift, but inside the rift there's a part of Guinan, an echo that still exists of her, and it's an interesting concept, but it's not. Just why doesn't Soren have someone in here? Or maybe he does and they just didn't see it. But that's what it's just. There's the inconsistencies. The interesting side plot of the movie too is Data's emotion chip going haywire and stuff, and that's fascinating. But it's also not directly necessary to the movie. It's just, it kind of is, but not. There's just moments where they just want to add in issues and stuff, which I'm glad they do because I like the emotion chip because I appreciate that Brent Spiner gets to act further. Yeah, let's keep going here. So the cool part is seeing Kirk, get to meet Picard and at least have some connection there for a little bit. I'll be honest, I wish there was more development of that. And I think how it ended, the running joke and gag from this film is Captain Kirk always won while on a bridge, but died underneath a bridge. And it's a running joke because it's such a stupid thing. Like, it should never be the case. Like, you seriously didn't think of that as a writer, that we're going to kill the most decorated, fascinating, amazing captain that started the whole, genre, really, underneath a bridge when he's been on a bridge commanding it for years. Like, come on, just do something more. You should put this guy in a starship and save the day, right? Something. It's just silly. One of those things, like, this movie just does not... It's just a glorified episode and not a very good episode. That it needed to flesh out some things and take it a few more... Like I said, it's... The premise that's here is good. Like, it is fascinating. But it needed a few more days or weeks in the writing room, just to let it really marinate for a while and get to where it needed to be. Yeah. Again, we see, like, in the Nexus, the ribbon, that Kirk and Picard have this time, and like I said, it's really bizarre, the time jump stuff going on doesn't make sense, because according to the guy in Echo, to him, it's just been a matter of moments since he arrived, and you're like, why? He should have been able to have so many adventures and stuff. It would have made more sense, too, if he was like... I know they wanted to add some tension of like, oh, obviously, Kirk's like, no, this is great. But within 10 minutes of that, like 15 minutes, whatever it was nothing comparatively. He's going, yep, this is boring. But yet he's been in there for decades. So what? Was he just in a pause mode? Like, that's weird. It's just weird. It is so nice to see them on screen together, though. It's neat. Sometimes it makes me wish we could have seen them, William Shatner and Patrick Stewart in their prime somehow in the 90s at the same time, 2 consecutive shows going on. It'd be amazing. But it is true that because of this, saves the day. But somebody made an interesting point when I was listening to some other video, like, if Kirk dies, why can't Picard just not stop it and then go, okay, we got to do this differently? You know what I mean? It's true. Until making sure Captain Kirk survives. That's the problem with this movie. So, a couple things as far as Starship stuff. We get an awesome intro at the beginning with the Enterprise B, with the ribbon and all that stuff. I mean, it is cool. Great visual effects there. Fantastically interesting. Lots of fun. Always fun to see Captain Kirk doing his thing, right? And then, towards the end of the film, we get the silliest thing ever of Soren hacking Geordi's visor so that way they can see through it. How they don't detect that there's a signal going out, don't know, right? It makes no sense. It is dumb. There are some plot issues here that if they were really thinking through this, like, there's nothing extra on Geordi's visor, so it's just hacked. So I would think that would be pretty easily detectable, and then, adding some lines of, I've encrypted it, I've done something to mask it, to cloak the signal, da-da-da-da. And why doesn't the Enterprise fire on the bird of prey? And it just waits to fire a torpedo, right, once their shields are down. It's a bird of prey. Fire. Change your shield harmonics. Do something. Like, the logic of that battle right there with a bird of prey that's decades old, that's tiny comparatively. Yes, it's going through their shields, but the Enterprise doesn't fire and waits for a torpedo. It's dumb. There's just weird issues in this movie, and it's like, man, they should have thought through this. But one of the most interesting epic moments is they wanted to destroy the Enterprise D so that way they could create a new ship that would look good on camera for big movies, which we get the Enterprise E out of it, the Sovereign class, so I'm happy with that because it looks way better than the D. The D just looks like a big yacht in space. Not streamlined, just big. A big boat in space, and the Enterprise E looks like we're going to do business. And I think even the Nebula looks better when you see it down below. Because, I don't know, it shrinks down a lot of those things because the Enterprise D is just stretched out and also chunky, and yet the Nebula is got the chunk of the saucer, yes, but because things are more squished nearby it, it just doesn't look as awkward. But we see some starships that are picking up the crew of the Enterprise D from this is a Nebula. So we have a modern ship. We have a Miranda, 100-year-old vessel, obviously updated, I would say, and an Oberth, a science vessel that's lightly armed and armored, shielded. Just funny to see, but this is the fleet they sent to rescue the Enterprise D crew, and I'm like, it's a Nebula, so they'd be able to fit on that pretty well, and then smaller ships to at least put them on, but it's scary to think that a Miranda class is just still putt-putting around like this, But we see the Excelsiors too. It's cool. I'm always excited to see ships. So, yeah, is Star Trek Generations actually any good? I think, again, there's pieces of it that are fascinating, and I think if it had marinated in the writing room a little longer, it could have been amazing. But there's just too many plot issues. There's just derpy things that happen that they don't stand up to any scrutiny of thought. It's just a week of the episode of the week show. It's just a movie that's really an episode of the week and does not feel as serious as it should. I would have much rather had a space battle with 3 or 4 birds of prey, you know what I mean? With them not getting through the shields, but calling in reinforcements, so then they actually attack the Enterprise. Boom. Now we've got something interesting. It's oh, okay, it makes sense. Or they have some lines where they're yeah, we totally encrypted it through Geordi's visor, and they can't detect this, and we don't get any of that. It's just, we could just see through it. How? Why? Because I messed with it. But it doesn't even really say much of anything. It's kind of weird. It's just weird. So, is this really a good movie? No, it's not. It's a struggle bus. I'm glad it exists only for the fact that it leads to the Enterprise E, the Sovereign class. Are the rest of the TNG movies any good? We'll review those in the future. But at the very least, we can go through this. I guess I need to start watching Insurrection. I've already watched First Contact, so good there. But rewatched it. I need to do also Star Trek 1, the motion picture. Let me know which one you'd like to hear from next. Let me know what you think about Star Trek Generations. Do you like it? Do you hate it? What did you think about the D getting destroyed? Was it your favorite starship ever? What is your favorite starship if it's not the D? Let me know it in the comments below. Have you figured out what my favorite starship is, actually? I said it in this video, but I don't know that you may have caught it for sure. Anyway, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I've been Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. Bye, y'all.